Hey, it's Don, the Auction Professor here. I thought I'd talk a little bit about my pickers and how I acquired them and what I do to find items for the most part. I have 8 different people that actually call me on a fairly regular basis. I've got some that call me every single week, some that call me even sometimes twice a week, depending on what they run into. And that varies in season as well, too. During the summer months, I get twice as many calls because they run across so many things so often. Sometimes I'll get a call, like, real late at night. I just picked up a huge bunch of something. Can you come out? I don't know what to do with all this stuff. Or I'll get a call while they're out saying, hey, here's a picture. Are you interested? Yes, no, and then we'll go from there. It's taken me a long time, several years, to get to where I'm at, where I have people that I can call or that call me on a regular basis. Some of this is from just being friends and talking to people at, flea markets, antique malls, all kinds of stuff. Estate sales. The estate sale people are very good to talk to. They can give you heads up on when new ones are coming out and things along that line. I've even run into people at thrift stores who say, hey, they'll see what I have and they'll say, hey, I've got some for sale, and things along that line. Or even Craigslist ads. 2 of my pickers I literally met from Craigslist, from calling ads. And once I started going out and seeing them, I usually just bought what they had for their price and just kept hammering at them and trying to get, a better relationship. And eventually I got to a point where I paid more, and then they always called me. The other ones didn't show up when they said they were going to, the other people that called about the ads. And it got to a point with the 2 of the pickers from Craigslist where they just stopped posting ads on Craigslist. First they'd call me, and then they got other people as well who they'll call after me. So what you want to do when you have a picker is trying to determine whether they're selling you their items first or you're taking second and third looks at the items. I usually don't like being the second or third person to look at something. Records are a different story if there's thousands of them, or even postcards, because everybody doesn't look for the same thing and everybody doesn't know the same type of items. And that's another reason why some of what we do works so well. But for the pickers, it took us a while, as I said, to work into a spot where they started calling us first. And getting them away from the Craigslist was the best bet for us, and offering them, decent prices and not arguing when they throw out a price there. Sometimes if he was giving me prices and they're really low, I'll tell you, look, I'll just give you $5 for it, even if it was a $1 or 2 item. It depends on what it is. You want to let them know that you're willing to pay the top dollar for them. I almost never argue with any of my pickers, too, on their prices. Occasionally, if there's an issue with it or something along that line, I will. But these are things that's going to take you time to find. You're going to have to run into these people. You're going to have to go to places like big antique malls or antique extravaganzas and flea markets where these people are at. It's the only way you're going to make contact with the people like that. For us, though, as I said, we've been straying away from clothing. I only do jackets and a few shoes and things like that, and some higher dollar items. And we've been working more and more towards doing the collectibles. The profit margins are huge compared to clothing. And the availability and the amount of items I can purchase in bulk. Like coming home from Savers with only 20 items and spending an hour or 2 there. I can spend an hour or 2 at one of my pickers and come home with hundreds of items. Hundreds. Sometimes 1,000 items if I buy huge bulk, lots of things. And then I can go through and pick through them through there. But the best bet for me is to avoid going to all the thrift stores. I don't go to too many anymore at all. You see, I still go to them. I still stop by, and I only do it when I'm going somewhere else, or if I'm already in that area, because it's just not worth me going and trying to make $100 off a thrift store when I can wait for a picker to call me and make $1,000 or $2,000. That's just what I want to do for us, what our business and how our business works the best. It's to steer away from the clothing so much. Like this shelf here, there's at least 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 items on this shelf. It's a small space. If that was clothing, that would have taken up just this one room, could have been full with clothing. I try to go for smaller items, items that I can buy in bulk, items that sell very well. Paper for us is it. And it took, again, as I said, it takes a long time to get these connections, but once you get the connections, it's going to come out ahead. I would rather spend, my time waiting for someone to call me and going to look at hundreds of items than going to 3 or 4, 5, 6 different thrift stores hoping to find something, or hitting, 50 garage sales and only coming home with 20 or 30 items. It's just not practical for my time with the way we've steered things. And as I said, with the pickers we have, they are looking for stuff for me specifically, because they know as soon as they call me, I'm going to show up and I'm going to give them a couple $100 in cash regardless. And for them, they might have 5 or 6 other people and sources where they specifically get from constantly, every week. I know some of the pickers that I have, they go to sales and auctions through a 3-state area. So I've got Michigan, Ohio, and Indiana items coming into my facilities for me to get. So it's a wide area. It covers, big cities: Detroit, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Dayton, Columbus, Indianapolis, all the way up into Saginaw and through that area. For us, it's a huge area. It's hundreds of miles of territory that are covered through my pickers and me. So for us, that was the route to go. That's always the route to go for me from this point on. I'll never really want to mess with as much the thrift stores. I love going to thrift stores, don't get me wrong, but I am a money person. I am more motivated by getting stuff turned and getting stuff in and priced and ready to go than anything else. All my experience and time and energy are invested into finding stuff and selling and making the money. So for me, like, you won't see me doing a lot of videos in thrift stores and things like that. It takes more time out of my day. I'd rather sit here and do some videos on what I have to help you better. You know what a thrift store looks like. But for us, I'd rather go to pickers than anything else. That's my best bet. And I'd rather hit antique stores and antique malls than I would a thrift store or, Goodwill, Savers, Salvation Army. The Salvation Army is great. We do find stuff at Salvation Army and Goodwills and stuff. But I steer more towards the higher end stuff. I have a better chance of finding high dollar items that have been missed by antique dealers. Most antique dealers only know a few areas. I only know some areas. I don't know pottery very well. I don't know glass very well. I don't know some of the higher end clothing or shoes. I know very little about shoes. So for us, I steer to areas I know. I've tried and advanced into the clothing, and we do, as I said, I do a ton of coats these days. I've got hundreds of coats right now in stock, ready to go. I've got probably 100 or more listed up now too. But for us, I spend my time where the higher dollar is, and we've invested in a lot of time. I spent 4.5 years or more getting to this point where we know where the high dollar items are, the best place to find them. And again, pickers for us, that's what we do. Pickers are the best choice. You need to go to these places, though, to get them. You need to hit up antique stores. Leave your name at antique stores. If you go to an antique store, ask them if this item comes in, that item comes in. If you go to a flea market, ask the same thing. Find out who runs the flea markets and talk to them about what dealers bring in what kind of items. That's always a good start. Find out what time the dealers are actually there, because sometimes the booths are run by other people, or sometimes there's nobody in the specific booths, and only the people who run the mall take care of that kind of information. So it's going to take you some hunting. It's going to take you calling. It's going to take you looking at Craigslist ads, Facebook Marketplace ads, whatever the case may be. You're going to have to get out there. Going to auctions is a good start too, running into people there. I've got people that, as I said, just go to auctions for me. Well, not just for me, but they go to auctions and they'll call me when there's items that I want. They'll have a list of items. They've got 5 or 6 people that they call after they buy items. One person buys this kind of item, like records, or one person buys postcards, or whatever the case may be. But that's what you want to look for. You want to build a rapport with people. You want to know what they do, what they buy, how often they get stuff in, and just get them to call you instead, just like antique malls. You got to be a little more careful at antique malls, because if you're getting information inside the antique mall for dealers that are just going to call you, the antique mall is not going to like that, because that means the people aren't bringing stuff into the mall as much. So just be cautious on that. Flea markets, the Craigslist has always been good. Some of the pickers are from people I run into who collect similar items, and we trade and swap. But again, I've got 8 of these that do this for me. One's sporadic. He doesn't call as much as the rest of them. And one calls, as I said, once or twice a week sometimes. Sometimes even more in season if he's going around and doing things. But it worked out better for us. And again, these aren't people that do internet as much as we do. They don't have a huge store. They might sell some higher-end pottery, glassware online, or some really high-dollar oddball sports items and things like that, which I just don't mess with. So that's where my connections have come through, just running into people and spending a lot of time talking to people who do Craigslist routinely and getting them to contact me. Most people, if they're doing Craigslist and they have stuff that's worth buying, don't do too much on the internet. Otherwise, they would have sold the items on the internet. And along with that, how you make money at antique stores, antique malls, and record shops and things like that, they don't look up every single item. Most dealers don't. Most dealers just, throw it out there. They'll buy a box of records, and they might throw it in their antique mall for, $1 or $2 a piece. They don't want to look up 400 different records. They're busy, just like we are. So That's why this works. Same with postcards. No one's going to look up. I've never run into a dealer that looks up all the postcards in a mall. Very rarely. I mean, almost never does that happen. Most of the time, they'll put real picture postcards. They'll throw like $10, $12 out, or local cards. They'll price higher, and just throw some prices on there, a couple bucks a piece. And that's just literally what I see all the time. And that's how I can make money, because they're not spending the time to do it. And that's why I say research is so important. Because I'm able to go to places where people haven't researched, do my own research, and then walk away with tons of items worth a lot of money that I can sell, even in bulk items. You can go to an antique mall and come home with a couple hundred items for only $100 or $2, and that's literally what we do all the time. But that's just a little touch on how we find items and what we do and how we've gotten to this point with pickers. I can't do that part for you. I don't know your area. I don't know who the people are. I can make suggestions, so if you have questions, feel free to ask below. Comment as much as you like, and I will answer pretty much every question that you have to the best of my ability. But again, that's what I'm here for. I'm trying to help. I like talking about this stuff. It's what I do. This is my blood. This is literally what I do 24/7. Even when we're laying there, I'll be thinking of other items to do or sell. I've got tablets where I write things down, and then I transfer them into a file called My Info. That's literally what it's called, and that's where I get ideas and keep them and store them and come back to them at a later date, or attack them at a later date. We keep track of everything. So again, Don, the Auction Professor, hope you at least learned something on what to do. Please hit the like button, subscribe, and tell a friend.